In July 2026, British politics hit a very strange snag. Nigel Farage suddenly resigned and triggered a by-election for his seat in Clacton, facing intense public scrutiny over a series of undeclared financial gifts. In response, the major political establishments made a calculated choice. Labour, the Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats, and the Green Party all publicly refused to contest the seat in protest. That mass boycott left a complete vacuum on the ballot. This created a scenario never before seen in a high-stakes parliamentary election, a race reduced to just 2 names. Because of that boycott, Farage's only remaining rival isn't a seasoned politician with a conventional platform. He is facing a living, breathing protest vote, perfectly positioned to capture every single person looking for an alternative to the status quo. That rival is Count Binface, a 5,900-year-old intergalactic space warrior, played by British comedian John Harvey. He runs on a highly specific manifesto. His top legislative priorities include capping the price of Wigan kebabs at exactly £2 and formally nationalizing the singer Adele. But underneath the absurdity, Binface has stumbled into a very serious position. By being the only alternative in Clacton, he has become the unified anti-establishment candidate by default. In a typical election, the opposition vote would split across several mainstream parties. In this specific race, every voter who wants to reject Farage is funneled toward a single name on the ballot, the Count. To understand exactly how unusual this is, you have to look at the strict financial rules of British elections. Anyone who wants to run for a parliamentary seat has to pay a mandatory £500 deposit up front just to get on the ballot. To get that money back, a candidate must secure at least 5. Historically, Joe candidates never come close to this threshold, practically guaranteeing they lose their deposit every single time. Yet, they keep running. For these novelty candidates, forfeiting this money is simply the accepted price of admission to participate directly in the democratic process. This tradition of expensive political satire stretches back to the 1980s, pioneered by the musician Screaming Lord Sutch and his official monster raving loony party. Sutch built a long legacy of fielding eccentric candidates, ensuring voters always had a surreal box to tick if they hated the mainstream options. But the electoral record is stark. Not a single loony candidate has ever reached the 5% threshold, though Sutch agonizingly peaked at 4.2% in a 1994 by-election. Winning was never really the point. These candidates exist to serve as a democratic pressure valve. Voting for a man in a leopard print jacket sends a much louder message of voter frustration than simply spoiling a ballot. Which brings us right back to Clacton. Because Farage is facing a nearly empty field, Count Binface is mathematically guaranteed to smash that 5% barrier for the first time in history. And if he goes further and actually wins, he exposes a massive vulnerability in the system. So what actually happens if John Harvey secures a majority and Count Binface defeats Nigel Farage? It triggers an immediate legal collision with the centuries-old rules of the House of Commons. Parliamentary convention is incredibly rigid. One of its oldest rules dictates that members of Parliament are strictly forbidden from addressing the House while wearing a hat. Furthermore, voting inside the Commons requires human tellers to visually identify every MP. That means any sort of face covering is completely illegal on the floor. The very costume that secured Binface the election would legally bar him from participating in Parliament, forcing an institutional standoff the moment he tried to enter the building. At that point, John Harvey has 2 options. He can take off the bin, comply with the rules, and try to govern the people of Clacton as a human representing a satirical fringe party. Or he can immediately resign to preserve the joke. That would force yet another costly by-election, thoroughly humiliating the political establishment that let him win in the first place. Either way, he achieves the objective of the novelty candidate. He disrupts the status quo, forces the nation to pay attention, and creates a massive public spectacle. The sight of an intergalactic space warrior standing on equal footing with the nation's most powerful figures suggests that the wall between the public and the parliament is entirely climbable. The highest offices in the land are accessible to anyone with £500, a cape, and the nerve to stand there.